Back in February of 2017, best friends Liberty German and Abigail Williams disappeared while taking a hike just outside their hometown in Indiana. Their bodies were found the next day in a rugged area near a trail. Hundreds of leads and intensive investigating brings us closer to a conviction than ever before. So put on your investigator shoes and let's delve deep into the double murder of Liberty German and Abigail Williams. Hey guys, I'm Jordan and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Murder in My Bedroom. This case has been receiving a lot of media attention lately. My week has been consumed with researching this case. I had no clue how viral this case had gone until I started researching videos and articles. It feels like I've been subconsciously leading up to this case in previous episodes, unknowingly hinting towards details, having no clue I would cover this case. For example, today's main suspect was a pharmacist, and if you've been keeping up with the podcast, you may know we actually covered the Sean Ross Weeb case, a pharmacist who murdered his girlfriend in Vernon, and I also just covered another double murder 3 weeks ago, the double murder of Robert and Robbie Ford, so it kind of feels like I have to do this case. But let me stop rambling and let's hop right into today's episode. But before I do, I just want to mention that all suspects and individuals mentioned in this case are innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. The information provided is based on available facts and publicly known information, and I am not providing legal advice or claiming the guilt or innocence of any individual. School was out, and it was the perfect opportunity for best friends Abigail Williams and Liberty German to take a midday hike. Abigail, also known as Abby, was born June 23, 2003 in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan to Anna Williams. She had attended several area churches in Delphi with her family. Abby was an 8th grader at Delphi Community Middle School, where she played saxophone in the band and was on the volleyball team. Abby loved reading, and she had a big count in her language arts class, which she was very proud of. She enjoyed camping, swimming, outdoor activities, riding ATVs, and camping trips to Michigan. She enjoyed art and photography, drawing, and creating little masterpieces, which were displayed in her home. She loved animals, especially her cat, Bongo. Liberty, also known as Libby, was born on December 27, 2002 in Lafayette, Indiana to Derek and Carrie. Libby was an 8th grade student at Delphi Community Middle School. Libby enjoyed playing volleyball, softball, soccer, and swimming. She was also a band member and enjoyed preparing for the academic bowl in her high ability class. She loves painting, doing crafts, and going on vacations. Like best friends do, Abby and Libby made plans to go hiking on the Monon High Bridge Trail as school wasn't in session that Tuesday. The Monon High Bridge was an approximately 1-mile gravel trail ending at the Monon High Bridge. The bridge was an abandoned railroad spanning the Deer Creek and the Deer Creek Valley. And before I continue, I do not know why my voice is cracking so bad today. Crazy. On February 13th, 2017 at 1:49 p.m., Libby and Abby were dropped off by Libby's sister, Kelsey German, across from the Mears Farm. Mears Farm is located on the north side of County Road 300 North near an entrance to the trails. Libby and Abby encountered a male subject on the southeast portion of the bridge. Libby made the extremely brave decision to pull out her phone and record this encounter on Snapchat. If you are already up to date with the case, you may know how much this roughly short clip has been circulating. On the day they went missing, Libby had posted photos on Snapchat of her and Abby walking along the trail. For a very long time, the public had no clue that investigators had more footage all along. More on that soon. This brave decision gave detectives a timestamp to help form a timeline of what happened. Libby's smartphone showed this occurred around 2:13 p.m. Libby captured a grainy video on her phone of a man dressed in blue jeans, a blue jacket, and a white cap walking along the abandoned railroad bridge. The male subject can be heard ordering the girls, "Guys, down the hill." Now you are about to hear the chilling footage. Guys, down the hill. It just gives me chills knowing the circumstances around that video. No witnesses saw them after the video was filmed, and there were no outgoing communications found on Libby's phone after she filmed it. Fear arises when they don't return to be picked up. 14-year-old Libby and 13-year-old Abby were officially missing. Hundreds of search volunteers participated in looking for the two girls' whereabouts. The bodies of Libby and Abby were found the next day, February 14th, 2017, about 50 feet from Deer Creek and a half a mile east of the bridge on the Delphi Historic Trails in Carroll County, Indiana, an area only accessible by foot or horse. The next day, so day 2, local, state, and federal investigators, even divers, took a closer look at the crime scene.
This is breaking news from Channel 13 Eyewitness
We have
News.
nobody in custody at this time. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is somebody out there that did this horrendous crime, and we're going to track them down.
That's state police talking about the fear and concern in a small town community after they announced that 2 missing girls were in fact victims of murder.
It is clear that investigators were taking this case very seriously. For years, police have refused to say how the girls died and gave very few details about the crime scene. This was most likely so they wouldn't jeopardize any details that could possibly lead them to the killer. If someone came on the station mentioning details that weren't publicly disclosed, investigators would be on really high alert. Investigators released a grainy image from the video and a chilling audio of the man telling the 2 girls go down the hill. The killer was said to be between the ages of 18 and 40 and may appear to be younger than his true age. Police also believe that the killer may have told someone in the community about the crime. Police gave the description of the man as a white male aged between 16 and 40 years old, between 5'6" and 5'10" in height, and weighing between 180 and 200 pounds. 2 police sketches were circulated of a man matching the description of the man in the footage, one in 2017 and one in 2019, which I may add looked nothing alike. The community and investigators were doing everything they could to find leads and link suspects. At the time, Ronald Logan was on the police radar when he lied to investigators about his whereabouts the day Libby and Abby went missing. Logan owned the land on which Libby and Abby's bodies were found, and his home was just 1,400 feet from the crime scene. A warrant application in 2017 cites multiple complaints that he was violent towards women and that he owned multiple weapons, including handguns and knives. Logan also allegedly lied about where he was at the time that the teenagers disappeared. He told investigators that he was picked up by a friend around 2 p.m. on the 13th of February and driven to an aquarium store, returning hours later at 5 p.m. The friend confirmed the alibi, but 2 days later they admitted that Logan had made up the story and asked him to lie. Cell phone location data placed Logan in the area around the trail at the time Abby and Libby disappeared. The document also says his voice was not inconsistent with the man captured in the video by Libby. Logan was never charged and he died in 2020 before the case was solved, and we don't know if he had any connection to the case at the time of this filming. The warrant filed by an FBI agent investigating the murders back in 2017 and partly redacted was to carry out a search on the home. The agent revealed that the girls had lost a lot of blood during their deaths and that the killer is believed to have moved and staged their bodies before taking some sort of souvenir from the scene. For the first time, the warrant also revealed that the teenagers had been killed by some sort of weapon. The word for the weapon was also redacted in the document. Because of the nature of the victim's wounds, it is nearly certain that the perpetrator of the crime would have gotten blood on his person/clothing. Keegan Anthony Klein caught investigators' eyes when the online account he used to groom underage girls online was tied to the teenage victims. His home had been searched on suspicion of child pornography charges just 2 weeks after the 2017 murders. In December 2021, Indiana State Police announced that officials had uncovered a fake online profile called Anthony's Shots. The profile was used from 2016 to 2017 on platforms including Snapchat and Instagram, and used photos of a known male model portraying him as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars. Klein posed as the male model in order to groom underage girls and get them to send nude photos and their addresses and try to get them to meet him. The male model whose photos were used had no connection to the case. Klein was arrested on charges of child sexual abuse images and child exploitation tied to the account in 2020. Klein allegedly told investigators he would use social media accounts to talk to underage girls and had exchanged messages with and received about 100 sexual photos and about 20 sexual explicit videos from about 15 underage girls. He denied any knowledge or involvement in the 2 girls' deaths. He was charged with 30 felonies in 2020 over the case. After 5 charges were dropped, Klein pleaded guilty to 25 counts. Libby's grandmother, Becky Patty, told News that Libby had never mentioned speaking to anyone online prior to her death, and that there hadn't been any indication that the 2 girls had arranged to meet anyone online the day they were killed. Up until last night, we were all under the impression that there was no indication, even now, as far as I'm aware, that there is no indication that the girls had any plans to meet anyone out there, she said. Libby's sister, Kelsey German, made efforts to debunk rumors developing in the public. She expressed that one of the most common rumors is that her sister's phone was moved after she was killed because it pinged multiple cell towers. She said this happened because the towers are located close to one another. She also heard rumors how her family had refused to take lie detector tests arrest and has been unhappy with the police, but said this is not the case. Absolutely no one refused a lie detector test. That is a very big misconception. We've been very open and give the police everything that we know, and they did the same to us, Kelsey German said. And contrary to what most people seem to think, we really like our law enforcement. They're super encouraging, they're very honest with us, they're amazing, and I'm very proud of their work. This just goes to show how much social media and public attention affects the case. This whole situation must not be easy for the family to go through, and now they have to come on live streams and do interviews explaining themselves.
Becky, I've gotten close to both families, but Becky has said to me time and time again, look, Susan, we just don't have the information to discuss. I don't know the cause of death. I don't know how they died. And I've mentioned this before, that Kelsey at times had said to me, look, I don't even know if I want to know.
She went on to say the most hurtful rumors are related to the accusations that her grandfather, her father, or other family members may have been involved in the murders. Ultimately, no arrests were made, no suspects formally named, and one lead after the other went cold. Finally, on October 26, 2022, a local man was arrested and charged with the 2017 murders of the teenage girls. Richard Allen, a 50-year-old Mary Delphi man, was taken into custody on October 26 and booked into the Carroll County Jail. The Associated Press said he was a licensed pharmacy technician and worked at the CVS pharmacy, just like in the case we covered about Sean Ross Weeb. Before he opened up his own pharmacy, Allen pleaded not guilty to the charges. This was huge. A long period of silence, and then boom, an arrest. Literally the week that I am filming this, new shocking details were disclosed to the public in an affidavit.
We are learning more about the tug of war between the man accused of murdering 2 young teens, his attorneys, and the court. Richard Allen faces 2 counts of murder for the February 2017 killing of Abby Williams and Libby German in the woods of Delphi, Indiana. More than 100 new documents were unsealed today.
You can view the affidavit down below in the sources, but I will cover the important content in it here. The affidavit reveals that clothes were found in the Deer Creek belonging to both girls south of where their bodies were located. There was a .40 caliber unspent round less than 2 feet away from Libby's body. It also had extraction marks on it. Interviews were conducted with 3 juvenile females, and they advised they were on the High Bridge Trail that day, walking toward Freedom Bridge to go home when they encountered a male walking from Freedom Bridge toward the Monon High Bridge. They described him as kind of creepy and stated he was wearing like blue jeans and like really light blue jacket, and his hair was gray, maybe a little brown, and he did not really show his face. They advised that the jacket was a duck canvas type jacket, and they said hi to the male, but he just glared at them. They said he was not very tall with a bigger build. He was no bigger than 5'10". One individual provided photos of them on the bridge at 12:43 p.m. and another at 1:26 p.m. off the bench east of Freedom Bridge. They advised after they took the second photo, that's when they all encountered the man who matched the description of the man in the video taken on Libby's phone. They stated he was walking with a purpose, like he knew where he was going. He had his hands in his pockets and kept his head down. Investigators received a tip, and his name is redacted, stating he was on his way to Delphi on State Road 25 around 2:10 p.m. on the day the girls went missing. He observed a vehicle parked on the south side of an old CPS building nearby. He said it appeared as though it was backed in to conceal the license plate. Another individual came forward whose name is also redacted that stated she was traveling east on 300 North that day and observed a male subject wearing a blue covered jacket and blue jeans. She further stated it appeared he had gotten into a fight. Investigators were able to place her where she said she was. Through interviews, electronic data photographs, and video from the We're Gonna Go With Hoosier Harvest store, investigators determined that there were other people on the trail that day after 2:13 p.m. Those individuals were interviewed and none of them encountered the male subject mentioned previously. The affidavit provides an excerpt from Allen's interview by investigators back in 2017. Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 to 15:30. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noticed that one of them was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember any further description and did not speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone. As he walked, he mentioned that there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead, but he did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photos or videos. Investigators discovered that Richard Allen owned 2 vehicles in 2017, a 2006 black Ford Focus and a 2006 gray Ford 500. Why am I dealing with so many cases with Fords? During the investigation, they observed a vehicle resembling Allen's 2016 Ford Focus on the Hoosier Harvest Store video at 1:27 p.m., traveling westbound on CR 300 north in front of Hoosier Harvest Store. This aligned with Allen's statement that he arrived at the trails around 1:30 p.m. Witnesses described the vehicle parked at the former Child Protective Services building as a PT Cruiser, small SUV or smart car, which investigators believe to be similar in nature to a 2016 Ford Focus. On October 13th, 2022, Richard Allen was interviewed again by investigators. He advised that he was on the trails on February 13th, 2017. He stated that he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge and then proceeded to the Monon High Bridge. Allen mentioned going onto the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish. Later in his statement, he mentioned walking back and sitting on a bench on the trail before leaving. He stated that he parked his car on the side of an old building. Allen informed investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. He also mentioned that he may have been wearing some form of head covering. Furthermore, Allen claimed that he saw no one else except for the juvenile girls he saw east of the Freedom Bridge. He disclosed to investigators that he owns firearms, which are kept at his home. Richard M. Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, also spoke to investigators. She confirmed that Richard did have guns and knives at their residence. She also stated that Richard still owns a blue Carhartt jacket. On October 13th, 2022, investigators executed a search warrant at Richard Allen's residence, located at 1967 North Whiteman Drive. During the search, officers discovered jackets, boots, knives, and firearms, including a Sig Sauer model P226 .40 caliber pistol with the serial number U625627. Between October 14th, 2022 and October 19th, 2022, the Indiana State Police Laboratory conducted an analysis on Allen's Sig Sauer model P226. The laboratory performed a physical examination and classification of the firearm, function test, barrel and overall length measurement, testing firing and munition component characterization, microscopic comparison, and examination with the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. Based on their analysis, the laboratory determined that the unspent round found within 2 feet of Libby's body had been cycled through Richard's firearm. Investigators then conducted a trace on the firearm and determined that Richard Allen had purchased the firearm in 2001. On October 26, 2022, Richard Allen voluntarily visited the Indiana State Police Post. He cooperated with investigators and stated that he had never allowed anyone to use or borrow the firearm. When questioned about the unspent bullet found between the bodies of Abby and Libby, Allen was unable to provide any explanation. He reiterated that he was on the trail but denied knowing Abby or Libby and denied any involvement in their murders. Investigators believe that the evidence gathered strongly implicates Richard Allen as the male subject seen on the video from Libby's phone. They strongly believe that Allen forcibly led the girls down the hill to the location where they were ultimately murdered. Richard Allen informed investigators that he was on the trail from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. on that day. Video footage from Hoosier Harvest Store captured a vehicle resembling Richard Allen's vehicle passing by at 1:27 p.m. heading towards the former CPS building. The clothing described by Allen to investigators matches the clothing worn by the male individual in Libby's video, as well as the clothing descriptions provided by witnesses. A vehicle matching the description of Richard Allen's 2016 Ford Focus was observed at around 2:10 p.m., 2:14 p.m., and 2:28 p.m. at the former CPS building. Based on Richard Allen's own statements, he walked through the trails and eventually hiked to the Monon High Bridge, where he walked out onto it. No individuals on the trail or on CR 300 North between 2:30 p.m. and 4:11 p.m. reported seeing a male subject matching Richard Allen's description. Investigators identified none of those individuals as having seen Allen Richard on the trail at the time. Richard Allen stated that he only encountered 3 girls on the trail, whom investigators believe to be the victims. Allen phoned his wife on a recorded line in custody. He apparently kept confessing to the point that she had to hang up on him. The girls' deaths were ruled as homicides caused by a sharp object, which would later be disclosed in the documents as a knife being used as the murder weapon, inflicting stab wounds on the victims. It has been reported that his mental and physical health has been declining since his arrest. Experts say this is expected under his circumstances. Allen also has been showing irregular behavior since his arrest. It has been reported that he wetted and ate papers. Yeah. given to him by investigators. It has been publicly shared that the original 6 to 12 second clip released by investigators early in the case was actually approximately 43 seconds in length. Captured at 2:13 p.m., it was recovered from Libby's iPhone 6S, found under her body. The document reveals that articles of clothing belonging to the girls were missing from the scene, including a pair of underwear and a sock. Obviously, this is huge news, and we will have to wait and see how this plays out at the trial.
Long road for the family. There's things that I did find in here. Again, several knives were taken from his property, Richard Allen, and I believe it's the first time we heard that a knife was a murder weapon here. So we're getting tidbits of information, but I still have questions as to how that could have happened.
Right. So to catch you up on speed, because this is probably a lot to take in at once, investigators believe that Richard Allen was not seen on the trail after 2:13 p.m. because he was in the woods with Abby and Libby. A forensic examination determined that the unspent .40 caliber round found between the bodies of Abby and Libby had been cycled through Richard Allen's Sig Sauer Model P226. The Sig Sauer Model P226 was discovered at Richard Allen's residence, and he admitted to owning it. Richard Allen stated that he had not been on the property where the unspent round was found, that he did not know the property owner, and that he had no explanation as to why the round cycled through his firearm would be at the location. He also stated that he never allowed anyone to use or borrow this Sig Sauer Model P226. Investigators believe that after the victims were murdered, Richard Allen returned to his vehicle by walking down CR 300 North. After walking back to his vehicle on CR 300 North, Richard Allen was observed wearing clothes that were muddy and bloody. Investigators, along with the witnesses, find the statements made by the witnesses to be credible and reliable. These statements not only support the timeline of the victim's death, but also align with the admission made by Richard Allen. Furthermore, the accounts provided by witnesses are consistent with each other and with the timestamps of photographs taken by the juvenile females, which correspond to the times they were reported being on the trail and encountering the male individual. So this is basically where we currently stand in the case. Richard Allen's trial is set to start on January 8th, 2024 at the time of filming this. A lantern release took place in front of the Delphi Community Middle School for Abby and Libby on Saturday, February 18th, 2017 around 8 p.m. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Murder in My Bedroom. This week's sources are The Independent, WLKY News, Fox 59, the source containing the affidavit, AboutFuneralHome.com, Legacy.com, and IndyStar.com. All sources linked below. Make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed this episode and follow Murder in My Bedroom on all social media. Contact murderinmybedroompodcast@gmail.com for any inquiries or case requests. That concludes this week's episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Special thanks to Fesliyan Studio for the royalty-free soundtracks. You can listen to Murder in My Bedroom in the car, on the treadmill, or even in the shower. Be sure to check out Murder in My Bedroom on Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and any other podcast platforms you may listen on. Please subject all case requests to murderinmybedroompodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.